hope you're all well. Welcome to today's science lesson, everyone. The learning intention is to understand our food chains start with the sun because plants need light to make food. Press pause while you get paper, pencil, or pen and a ruler. Neatly write out your date and learning intention, and after you've underlined it, we can begin. So you're going to begin with using the clip above to access a video on what a food chain is. Here's a pause point while you get that done and do your best listening while watching the video. Let's just recap what a food chain is. Every organism must eat to survive. Plants make their own food using water and sunlight through a process called photosynthesis. They also draw nutrients from the soil in which they live. Animals eat plants, insects, and other animals. In this way, various plants and animals are not only interconnected, they are dependent on one another for their very survival. The term food chain describes the relationship between different organisms with regards to who eats what or who. Every living organism is part of a food chain. In this example, the leaves of a plant are eaten by a beetle. The beetle is eaten by a mouse. The mouse is eaten by a snake, and the snake is eaten by an owl. Each of the living things above is a link in the chain. Every organism is in the food chain is classified according to what it eats. Plants are called producers because they produce new energy by making their own food through the process of photosynthesis. Animals are consumers because they don't produce energy. They use the energy made by the producers when they eat plants. Animals that eat plants are called primary consumers or herbivores. Carnivores, animals that eat herbivores, are called secondary consumers. Carnivores that eat carnivores are called tertiary consumers. Animals that eat both plants and other animals are called omnivores. Organisms that eat dead plants and animals and return their nutrients to the soil where they can be drawn up to nourish plants are called decomposers. All the energy in a food chain comes from the producers. So the higher you get in the food chain, the less energy there is available. To go back to our example food chain, this is why there are many more plants than beetles, more beetles than mice, more mice than snakes, etc. Let's see how much we can recall from the text we've shared in this multiple choice task. Number 1, a food chain describes A, the process by which a plant makes its own food, the fact that all animals eat plants, the relationships between organisms, who eats what or who, the process by which animals expend energy. So it's a multiple choice where you get to pick one out of the 4 options. Number 2, in the example food chain, example presented, the owl is A, a producer, B, a primary consumer, C, a secondary consumer, or D, a tertiary consumer. Question 3. In the example food chain presented, the beetle is A, producer, B, primary consumer, C, secondary consumer, D, decomposer. Question 4. In the example food chain presented, the leaves are A, producer, B, primary consumer, C, secondary consumer, D. Tertiary consumer. Question 5. In the example food chain presented, the mouse is A. Producer, B. Primary consumer, C. Secondary consumer, D. Decomposer. Before we move on to the tasks, here is a short video clip. Access it on the link above and look at food chains. So you're going to be looking at the food chain and adding the missing labels. Okay, you've got a bank down the bottom with the labels and you've got to think about where they belong. There's 4 empty boxes, spaces for these 4 labels. That's your 1-star task. Press pause while you have a go. And here is the 1-star task continued where you've got an empty food chain. Think about which organisms you can include to fill in the missing spaces to complete the food chain. Remember to take pictures of your work. So here we have a food web for the 2-star task and we've got labels that are missing. You can use the keywords in the bank there for completing the missing labels. And continuation for the 2-star task is where you have to answer the following questions. So, number 1, is a plant a producer, consumer, or predator? Question 2. What is the name given to animals that only eat plants? Question 3. What is the name given to animals that only eat other animals called? Final question. Can you give an example of a secondary consumer? Remember to look back in the text if you need to remind yourselves. Remember to take pictures of your work, everyone, and email them through to school. Until next time, stay safe.